Xin mến chào quý vị đến với chương trình của The Voice of Việt Vegas với episode tháng 5 của lần bầu cử năm 2026. Như tất cả các năm có bầu cử, VVV cố gắng giới thiệu đến quý vị các ứng cử viên người Mỹ gốc Việt để thư chuyện cùng quý vị. Hôm nay, không ngoại lệ, chúng tôi hân hạnh giới thiệu dân biểu tiểu bang Massachusetts Tram Nguyễn, một trong những nhà lãnh đạo lập pháp gốc Việt nổi bật tại tiểu bang Massachusetts. Lần này cô là ứng cử viên dân biểu Quốc hội Hoa Kỳ. Trump sinh ra tại Việt Nam và lớn lên trong một gia đình được di cư sang Hoa Kỳ sau chiến tranh Việt Nam. Từ việc học tiếng Anh như ngôn ngữ thứ hai đến trở thành người phụ nữ gốc Việt đầu tiên được bầu vào Quốc hội tiểu bang Massachusetts. Hành trình của cô là một trong những minh chứng cho nghị lực và tinh thần vươn lên của người Việt Nam. Trong chương trình này, chúng tôi sẽ nghe câu chuyện của cô về góc nhìn của một nhà lãnh đạo gốc Việt đang góp phần phân định chính sách quốc gia tại một tiểu bang giàu truyền thống. Chúng tôi sẽ xen kẽ tiếng Anh và tiếng Việt để cuộc trò chuyện được tự nhiên và dễ theo dõi. Xin mến chào dân biểu Tram Nguyễn đến với The Voice of Việt Vegas. Xin Trâm có vài lời chào cùng khán giả của VVV.
Dạ, xin cảm ơn anh Tuấn cho câu hỏi để trò chuyện với các khán giả của đài VVV. Trâm rất hân hạnh được có cơ hội lên đây nói về cái journey của Trâm từ lúc mà lên được làm dân biểu 8 năm nay cho tới bây giờ. Trâm xin phép tại vì Trâm qua đây lúc 5 tuổi nên tiếng Việt cũng không có rõ lắm,
Understandable.
nên xin quý vị nếu mà có cái gì sơ sót xin quý vị bỏ qua cho. Và Trâm cũng nghĩ là trong cái interview này Trâm sẽ nói tiếng Anh cho nó dễ hơn, nhưng mà muốn quý vị biết là Trâm cũng có biết tiếng Việt, nhưng mà cái tiếng Việt là thông thường là nói chuyện với ba mẹ hay là hát karaoke thôi nên nói về chính trị thì hơi
Wonderful.
khó.
So cute. Anyway, thì như hồi nãy có nói đó thì mình sẽ trò chuyện bằng tiếng Việt và tiếng Anh xen kẽ, mà most likely on the questions and answer probably be going to be in English. Majority of the time, I know that you're probably more fluent in English, so just take it easy and express yourself. All right. All
Thank
right.
you.
So the first question that I have for you is that. Please share a brief overview of your background and personal journey that led you to decide to run for Congress.
Yes, thank you so much anh. Như là anh giới thiệu hồi nãy là gia đình của Trâm qua đây là tị nạn đi diễn HO từ lúc 92. Trâm qua đây lúc 5 tuổi và thấy ba mẹ rất là cực khổ, làm những cái công việc rất là khó khăn để cho Trâm và cho hai đứa em của Trâm được một cái đời sống mới. Như là bây giờ thì như là những cái gia đình tị nạn khác, gia đình Trâm qua đây chỉ có 100 đồng thôi và một cái số suitcases. Trâm grew up in public housing. Ba mẹ là deliver pizza, Chinese food. Trâm rất là hân hạnh là được là người đầu tiên ở trong được ra đại học và sau đó ra law school. And so when after law school, I really saw the importance of fighting for working families and preserving the American dream that allowed me to get to where I am today. And that's very personal, and that's why I've spent my entire career on this. And I have to say that seeing how my parents didn't understand their rights, didn't understand English, didn't understand how to access benefits, that really instilled in me a sense of how do we make investments in people, investments in immigrant families so that they can have a real shot at success. And so that's why after becoming the first in my family to go to college and then law school, I could have gone on to a big law firm, but instead I decided to go into legal aid work. And for those who don't know what legal aid is, I essentially provided free legal assistance to low-income people like survivors of domestic violence, low-wage workers, families trying to navigate complex legal issues. Many of those families were Vietnamese because I was the only Vietnamese-speaking attorney in that system. And so, in doing that work, I saw the power of policy and how good policies could really help people and how bad policies could really hurt them. And that was why I decided to start working on policies. And in 2018, I saw that the current incumbent were putting out really bad policies that could really hurt people. For instance, he was very anti-immigrant and he filed a bill that would have allowed police officers to stop anyone who looks illegal. That's just outrageous to me. He wanted to legalize racial profiling. And so, as someone who is an immigrant myself, I was outraged. Everyone told me that I should be concerned about this race because, I have a very Vietnamese last name tên Nguyễn là rất là thông thường nhưng mà cho mấy người Mỹ trắng thì it was hard for them to pronounce. And so we had to teach people how to say my name. We had to build coalition and we had to bring people together. And we were very lucky that I was able to beat this incumbent of 8 years in my first try, my first run. And I was able to beat him by 10 points in 2018. And I've been the state representative ever since and very much so excited to be in this leadership position, especially now as the very first Asian American woman to ever chair a committee in the Massachusetts House of Representatives. I currently chair the Committee on Climate Action and Sustainability, and I'm very much looking forward to bringing both my personal experience and professional experience to the federal level.
Yeah, I happen to live in Massachusetts for over 20 years after finishing school over there, and I worked for a little bit before I moved out of Massachusetts. So I know that Massachusetts is very strong uh, backing up, all of the, majority of the Vietnamese. However, as you stated earlier, that there is some people still very anti-immigrants. But let me go back to the question that I have for you for today's purpose. The seat that you are running for was previously held by Congressman Seth Moulton, who is now seeking election to the U.S. Senate. Cam to is my wife, and I have had the opportunity to meet him. He visited our office during the trip to Las Vegas many years ago, and I had the privilege of interviewing him when he ran for president in 2020. So, as you look ahead, which aspect of his works do you hope to continue, and where do you see opportunities to better serve your constituent?
Yeah, so I've also had the pleasure of serving with Congressman Moulton in his office for a long time because he's been my congressman for the duration of the time that I've been in office. And for us, I have to commend him and his fabulous team for their constituent services. So whenever we have issues, and mind you, I came in 2019 and the COVID pandemic happened in 2020. So all of us were all hands on deck trying to help our constituents navigate that crisis. But in addition to that, there are certain issues like immigration issues that we can't really address at the state level. So we rely on our federal partners for many of these constituent services, and they've been very responsive, which I appreciate, and certainly will continue that work. As I also pride myself in very on the ground and frequent constituent services and meeting people where they're at. But I think in this moment in time, I think that the people across the sixth congressional district, and actually, frankly, across the country, they're looking for folks with the lived experience. And that's why my working class immigrant family background has been resonating with so many people. I've lived the struggles that everyday working families are going through right now. And I see the American dream slipping away for so many people. Our government, not to be dramatic, but indeed, our government is in crisis right now. We're witnessing the erosion of basic rights. We're seeing skyrocketing costs of living and an overall disillusionment with government. And so, in this moment in time, it demands that we have leaders who not only understand policy theoretically, but understand that through lived experience, who can cut through political noise and actually deliver for the people because we understand how policies actually impact people on the ground. And so, if elected, my primary goal is to ensure that the federal government government actually delivers for everyday people, not just the powerful few. And I want to pass legislation that will lower costs for working families, fully funds our public education system. I grew up in the public education system. Imagine a little girl who came here at 5 years old, not knowing a word of English, was able to go through the public education system to become the first Vietnamese American woman to ever get elected in Massachusetts and now running for Congress, right? That's the sort of investments we need to be making. But also, we have to protect our environment for future generations and ensure that doors of opportunities like what we have had remain open for next generations of immigrants, workers, and everyday Americans. We can't just keep electing the same DC insiders expecting a different result. And that's why I'm excited to bring in fresh, battle tested perspectives to this movement that we're building. And really, the short answer is I realized I couldn't afford to sit by and watch this country um, go in the direction that it's going in without putting myself out there on the line to run for this seat, to really represent people getting the work done and making sure that we are moving this country forward.
Wonderful. Looking at your platform, which specific policy issue do you believe that is the most critical for your district, and how do you plan to address it?
So I have been campaigning for the seat since October. The 6th Congressional District has 39 towns and cities overall, so it's a pretty big district. And we've been going across the district, and the single most critical issue that we're hearing is the skyrocketing cost of living. People can't afford to think about anything else if they can't put food on the table. And so for me, it's so crucial for us to address everything from housing to childcare to groceries, because the American dream is just so far away for people. And we cannot talk about how to build a thriving community if we can't give people basic access to basic needs. If working families and seniors and our next generation are priced out of towns and cities and not able to age in place or have their kids move into a community, that is a big loss. And so for me, the affordability crisis has to be from the ground up. And that means expanding affordable housing, because I think housing is a fundamental right. My parents, or like I said, we came over in 92 and they were able to buy their first home in 1998 with, and with that stability, that gave me the stability I needed to thrive. And I think that every family deserves that. So I will fight for robust federal investments to build and preserve truly affordable housing, and especially to expand on first-time home buyer assistance programs that have helped so many families through the years, and also to extend out renter assistance so that everyone can afford to live in the communities where they work and live, and we want to be able to raise their families. But also healthcare and prescription costs are also skyrocketing. I will fight to move for Medicare for all and cap out-of-pocket costs for families and seniors. I'm seeing that right now. My mother's health insurance, she's on Mass Health. She has a fixed income of $1,000 because she's retired, and her health insurance went from $4 to $235 this past January because the subsidies were taken away at the federal level. And thankfully for her, I'm able to pay for her. But what about the thousands of families out there who don't have this sort of assistance? And so healthcare is going to be so key, especially giving people access to life-saving medicine, and so that they don't have to choose between medication and putting food on the table. And all of this is to say that we have to protect the working class and the middle class. And that includes like raising the minimum wage, making sure that people have access to the benefits that they deserve. And because I've lived through all of these struggles, seeing how my parents had to stretch every dollar in Congress, I will use my experience both as a legislator and a legal aid attorney and someone who grew up poor to deliver on these real issues that hardworking people across this district are struggling with.
Yeah, that is true. In today's political climate, what is your approach to working across the aisle and building a consensus on important legislative matters?
Very good question. I think that that has been why I've been very successful as a state legislator. Even though, so when I first won the seat, I mentioned to you, I beat an incumbent. He was someone who was on the opposite, who's a different party than I am. But after coming in, I've been able to work with people across the aisle and the other party. In the 8 years I've been in office, I've been able to pass 13 bills. And these bills range anywhere from giving workers more access to unemployment, including, nail salon workers who didn't have access to that during COVID, and giving, more protections for survivors of domestic violence, et cetera. All of these bills were passed with bipartisan support. And also, in this district where I represent, I'm a Democrat, I'm surrounded by Republican colleagues, and I've continued to work with them on many issues impacting us every day, from climate change to making sure that we get enough funding for the senior centers, for our schools, and just basic needs for the people in our communities. And in doing that work, I realized the importance of actually talking to people you don't necessarily agree with, because I actually think you learn more from people you don't agree with than with the people you agree with. Because essentially, if you're talking to people you agree with, you're saying the exact same thing. And so, especially as a lawyer, I value understanding an issue from all different perspectives so that I can make a more informed decision. And I think that that experience, both because I was a litigator and also as a state rep who has done a lot of bipartisan work, I could bring a fresh perspective, a unique perspective to Congress to really roll up my sleeves, work with anyone who's willing to work with me. And I think it's important to say that I'm not going to compromise my values, but I will make compromises, because I think compromises are necessary for us to actually get results for people. And right now, people are not looking for folks who are just talking. They want action, and they want someone who can actually make negotiations and work with others to actually deliver for the people. And that's what I'm looking to do if I were to get into Congress.
Wonderful. Given your experience, what unique perspective or skill do you believe you would bring to the legislative process in Washington, D.C.?
Well, like I said, I come from a very unique background. And also, this is a historic race. For this race in CD6, we've never had a woman represent the 6th Congressional District. We have never had an Asian American representing Massachusetts in Congress before, and I could be the very first. And also, we've never even had an immigrant representing Massachusetts in Congress since probably the 1800s. So my background and how my background shapes how I think about policies gives me this unique perspective, especially now in this moment in time. This month is Asian American, Native and Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And it seems as though our history is not very often talked about at the national level. And our experiences as immigrants as well has been somewhat dismissed because there aren't that many of us. But guess what? Our communities are currently living in fear because of immigration policies that adversely impact us. And so as an immigrant and an immigration lawyer, I bring a very unique perspective that could add to the conversation for us to have true immigration reform that could help so many families, including Vietnamese American families, looking to come to this country, looking to make sure that we have the access to opportunities just like everyone else, and not feeling the fear. Most people are not talking about this, but there are many Vietnamese Americans who are getting deported right now because of certain policies to countries that they have no idea how to survive in. And so how do we bring some of these stories and some of these experiences to the forefront and have real immigration reform?
Wonderful. Yeah, so you know that every campaign need monies, and this is a kind of a little bit sensitive question for everyone. And the question is, how do you plan to unite and gain support from the Vietnamese community nationwide across all political affiliations, and what specific benefit would you deliver for Vietnamese Americans? Additionally, what role do you see financial support from this community playing in your campaign success?
Yeah, so great question. We've been trying to do all this. I was actually really thrilled to have your support. I've been on several other Vietnamese channels as well, and my entire career really has been in helping Vietnamese Americans, particularly new immigrants, to try to get access to government. And I think that this race and representation in government is truly how we, as a smaller community, can have a voice in government and see how policies can actually impact us on the ground. I mentioned to you several things that I've already done for the Vietnamese community. For instance, a lot of nail salon workers are independent contractors, so they would not have had access to unemployment benefits during COVID if there weren't folks like myself advocating for that access, right? Or now with the immigration policies impacting having people coming here or staying here for family petitions, for instance, that impacts a lot of Vietnamese families overall. And so just because I'm in Massachusetts, I hope that people are seeing the value of having someone from of Vietnamese American descent in Congress to make sure that these policies don't forget about our communities. And frankly, our parents and older generations survived war, displacement, and immense hardships so that we can have this choice. And what we do with those choices is our collective responsibility right now. And I believe that regardless of political affiliation, the Vietnamese American community nationwide is deeply united by a common respect for freedom. And we have an unshakable belief in the power of opportunity and a desire to see our stories being honored and represented at every level of government, including this very highest level, which is Congress. Because right now we only have Derek Jung from our congressman from California. We need more of us in there. So when I first, I mentioned to you when I first ran for office, I was told that my last name sounded not electable. Nguyen. It's so hard for them to pronounce. But now everyone knows win with win. And that makes a difference because I've used my name to show people the power of the Vietnamese community. I refuse to change my name. I proudly carried my family's name and our community stories into all the pieces of legislation that I've been able to work on. And we've won on those stories, right? And by running for Congress, we're sending a powerful message to the next generation of Vietnamese Americans that they belong in all rooms, that we can be in all of these rooms, and where national decisions are being made to make sure that our stories and our voices are being heard. And of course, in Congress, I want to deliver on tangible benefits for our community. I'll fight for small business equity. So many of our community members are entrepreneurs. We want to support their hard work. We definitely also want to expand on language access so older folks and new immigrants understand their rights and getting access to federal housing and our legal system and any other benefits that they deserve. And of course, we have to protect our workers and ensure that our communities remain safe. These are all points to make sure that people understand that we do belong here. And I want to be a part of that process. And for us, I understand donations are a very difficult thing, especially my parents, growing up poor. They're like, "Đừng có bao nhiêu xin tiền." And that's all I do now. Is for donations for campaigns. But donations make such a huge difference for us. You help us send out mailers to explain my positions. You help me hire people to go out there to knock on doors to explain to people why it's important to elect someone like me. And because I don't take any corporate PACs, my entire campaign is powered by people, everyday people. So donations from everywhere make such a huge difference. And every dollar from our community is an investment in our collective visibility and our shared voice. And it gives us the resources to stand up to political establishment and run an aggressive campaign and make history together. I could be the very first Vietnamese American to ever get elected into Congress from Massachusetts. And that's a powerful thing. And I look forward to having so many of these conversations. Actually, really cute. There's this one man who has my dad's exact name, Long Nguyen, in California. And every month he sends me $3 and he tells me he doesn't have a lot of money, but he wants to show his support. And that's so cute.
Thưa quý
But that
vị,
makes a difference.
well, thank you so much, Trump. You are so honest as I see it. Thưa quý vị, mỗi một cuộc tranh cử là một cái rất là khó khăn, một vấn đề để tìm được những người có thể giúp cho vấn đề tranh cử. Thưa quý vị được biết là có những cái cuộc tranh cử có thể tốn lên cả hàng trăm triệu. Tuy nhiên, hy vọng rằng nếu mà quý vị nghe theo dõi chương trình này thì xin quý vị rộng lượng, không cần phải nhiều, 5, 10 đồng, 20 đồng, 100 đồng, 200 đồng, tùy theo khả năng của quý vị. Và những sự hy sinh của quý vị sẽ giúp cho cộng đồng Việt Nam chúng ta trên toàn nước Mỹ, chứ không riêng cá nhân là mình phải là cái người đó phải là ở trong cái địa phận của mình. Hy vọng rằng quý vị nhìn trên màn ảnh sẽ thấy những cái số điện thoại cũng như là những chỗ có thể gọi vào để có thể ủng hộ cho cô Trâm Nguyễn. Ờ, Không, nếu mà mình không có cái khả năng để ờ, thâu nhận được tất cả những sự đóng góp của quý vị thì đương nhiên rằng cái cuộc tranh cử sẽ rất là khó khăn, và đương nhiên là sẽ khó có thể thắng được. Ờ, cái sự tài giỏi là một phần, cái sự vinh hạnh là một phần, nhưng tất cả mọi thứ không có thể nào thành công nếu không có sự đóng góp của tất cả các đồng hương trên nước Mỹ. Cũng như là ờ, cái số tiền không cần phải to lớn lắm, nhưng mà 100 người, 1.000 người, 10.000 người góp lại thì hy vọng rằng chúng ta sẽ có một hãnh diện được có một người cô gái Việt Nam được đại diện cho cộng đồng của Việt Nam đứng ra trong Quốc hội. Thưa quý vị được biết là gần đây thì có những cái sự rất là cần thiết, nhất là về vấn đề nhân quyền của không không những của những người ở Việt Nam tại Mỹ không, mà của những người Việt Nam tại Việt Nam. Thì thưa quý vị, hy vọng rằng quý vị sẽ nhìn lên màn hình, có số điện thoại gọi vào hoặc là có thể đóng góp với cái khả năng tùy cơ của quý vị, thì đó là một cái ờ, 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 nguồn tài lực để có thể giúp cho Trâm Nguyễn thành công trong vấn đề bầu cử. Before I have the last question for you, uh, let me ask you this. How is it go so far for your campaign?
Thank you so much for asking. We're very excited. Actually, this week, a poll from one of my opponents just came out, and I'm leading in the polls right now, which is
Wonderful.
very exciting for all of us. And we're continuing to build on the momentum. Like you said, we could use a support of any kind, and the best way is through our website, tramforcongress.com, TRAM for Congress.com, and people can join, and also people can volunteer too from across the country. We have phone banks. We have a lot of young people. Just today, I went to a Memorial Day event earlier in the morning, and there's this young 15-year-old Vietnamese boy who came up and said, "Can I take a picture with you?" Because he was so excited and he wants to get involved, and that's the sort of excitement that we want to encourage. Students, young people from across, or anyone from across the United States, if you could help, we have a lot of phone banks and a lot of opportunities for people to help out.
Wonderful. So, last question. What message would you like to convey to voters who may be undecided, and why should they choose to support your campaign?
Oh, people have a real choice, a clear choice in this race. I have lived both sides of government. I understand what happens when it fails you, but also what's possible when it can deliver for you. And that's why I'm running for Congress, is to make sure that people can have faith in our democracy again. People can have faith in our rule of law, and people can have faith in that government can be a source of good. And I tell people this all the time. My dad fought for democracy and freedom. So many uncles out there fought for democracy and freedom in Vietnam. We came here for democracy and freedom. We need to preserve that in this country right now. And we need people who will fight with every fiber of their being to save our democracy as we know it. And that's someone who is a fighter like me, who have been, I could have chosen the easy route, but I chose to fight for marginalized people. I chose to take on an incumbent to be in this seat right now. And I'm choosing again to fight in Congress for working families, immigrant American families like our own. And I hope that people could see that electing someone who is real, who has the lived experience, would make a difference in Congress to actually be able to get things done for people going forward.
Well, thank you again for your time, and the Voice of Việt Vegas wish you successful in your campaign and reach the finish line. Một lần nữa xin cảm ơn Trâm Nguyễn rất là nhiều. Hy vọng rằng anh em mình sẽ có những cái dịp gặp nhau. À, Không chừng là có thể rằng nếu mà khi mà thắng cử rồi thì tháng giêng mình cũng có thể mình bay qua bên Massachusetts thăm nhà trở lại, rồi đến để tham dự những cái một cái buổi tiệc để về cái sự thành công đắc cử của Trump. Một lần nữa, The Voice of Vegas hân hạnh đem đến quý vị một người Việt Nam có rất là nhiều thiện nguyện để giúp cho dân của mình ở đây. Hy vọng rằng chúng tôi sẽ tiếp nhận được những sự hưởng ứng của quý vị, cũng như là những sự đóng góp vào cuộc tranh cử của cô Tram Nguyễn. Một lần nữa xin thành thật cảm ơn tất cả quý vị và xin chúc quý vị một mùa hè thật tươi vui. Thank you again.
Thank you.